Alright, how does this look? Am I in focus still? Hello everyone, and welcome to Medical Spanish with Michael. I know that you're here to learn medical Spanish fast, so let's not waste any time and get right into it. So tip number one to learn medical Spanish fast is to memorize high yield phrases. Phrases that you will use the most often. And what I've done is I've split these into three different categories. So the first category is how to introduce yourself. Phrases like, hello, nice to meet you, and hello, I am your doctor, I am your nurse, nutritionist, whatever it is. So you can check out this video right here to learn awesome phrases like that. And the second category is what I call survival phrases. And these are phrases when you're in trouble and you need to clarify something with a patient. So phrases like, I'm sorry, could you repeat that please? Or could you speak more slowly? As well as phrases like, thank you so much for your patience. I'm learning Spanish. Or even phrases like, I'm going to call an interpreter. And what you can do is check the link in the description to see an awesome list of survival phrases that I've put together for you all for medical Spanish. And the third category is phrases that you use every day. So these are phrases that are specific to you and your role in healthcare. So they could be phrases like, I'm going to do a physical exam, or what brings you here today, or where does it hurt? What I recommend you do to find phrases like this is get a copy of the medical Spanish cheat sheet that I have. I'll put a link to it, super cheap on Amazon, but you can look at all of these awesome phrases and find out which ones will be most important for your role in healthcare. So for this next tip, I like to imagine studying medical Spanish on a bell curve, where the horizontal axis is the intensity at which you're studying, and the vertical axis is the benefit that you get from studying. So you might be one of those people that gets home from work and decides to study medical Spanish, but first you pop on the television, lie down on your couch, and open up one of those popular language learning apps on your phone where you can repeat the same exercises that you've been doing for the last few months. And if this sounds like you, then you might not be challenging yourself enough. Or you might be one of those people that pops on your local Spanish television channel or the third season of Narcos without subtitles. So if this sounds like you, then you might be getting my point that you'd be challenging yourself a little too much, which is why the second tip that I have is to challenge yourself when you're studying medical Spanish, but not too much. And I'll give some examples of great activities that you can do to be right at the top of that bell curve and challenging yourself just enough. So for this next tip, let's say that your goal is to study an hour a day for 5 days a week. And that's great. But we know that, like most people, we're not perfect, and you'll sooner or later probably miss a day or two. And that's totally fine if you need to miss a day or two. But I've noticed that the problem that some of my students have is that they decide that if they don't have that full hour to set aside to meet their goal, then they don't study at all. But I've noticed that some of my most successful students manage to study even 5 minutes or 10 minutes here or there. They find a break, those little gaps in their day, even if they're super busy, because they already have their resources and materials ready to go. If they're waiting in line at the supermarket or anything like that, then they can review a few flashcards, or they can listen to 5 minutes of a podcast or watch one of my videos, for example. So this is why my third tip for studying medical Spanish is anything is better than nothing. And speaking of anything is better than nothing, we're going to learn 5 symptoms for medical Spanish right now. So the first one is headache. And to say headache, you say dolor de cabeza. Dolor de cabeza. Dolor means pain, and cabeza means head. So pain of the head, dolor de cabeza. The second one is aumento de peso, and this means weight gain. Aumento, think augmentation, increase. Aumento de peso. And the next one is pérdida de peso. This is weight loss. Pérdida. Pérdida de peso. And the next one is estreñimiento. Estreñimiento, which means constipation. Estreñimiento. And the fifth and final symptom that we're going to learn here today is hinchazón, swelling. Hinchazón. My fourth tip is to hire a tutor. Tutors are awesome because they can not only help you practice your pronunciation, they can help correct your mistakes and prevent them from becoming bad habits, fossilized mistakes, which are really, really difficult to change down the road. But tutors are awesome because they can help you actually practice speaking, which, you know, if you have a language learning app, if you have a grammar book, if you have a medical Spanish textbook, if you have these YouTube videos, with all of these resources, you're still not able to practice speaking. Tutoring is the only way, and it's the best way that you can practice speaking, which is what you really need for your patients. And tutors are great because we know that speaking in Spanish for the first time is a very scary and nerve-wracking experience. So if you have a tutor that you can trust, a tutor that you feel comfortable with, then they will make it so much easier and be able to support you in getting out those jitters and all of that nervousness of speaking in Spanish for the first time, so that when you go and try to speak with a patient for the first time, it will be natural and it'll be almost automatic. And for this last tip, it's really important to understand the difference between active learning and passive learning for studying medical Spanish. So active learning is when you challenge yourself to produce language, and passive learning is when you challenge yourself to try to understand language. So examples of active learning are writing and speaking, and examples of passive learning are reading and listening. And as you might imagine, active learning requires much more effort than passive learning. But if you focus your studying on active learning, then it will definitely pay off. So examples of active learning would be writing dialogues for patients that you have, practicing speaking with a tutor, and you can even make activities like reading and listening active activities. For example, while you're reading, you can look up vocabulary words and actively try to use them in new sentences, and then have a tutor double check those sentences that you used your new vocabulary in. And similarly, while you're listening, you can actively write down notes of new vocabulary, or write down times that you didn't understand a section, and then go back and look at a transcript or listen to that section with your tutor and try to understand actively what's being said throughout the entire, if you're listening to a podcast or a video or whatever it is. So my final tip is to make it fun. When you're studying medical Spanish, it doesn't have to be in complete silence, and you don't have to systematically memorize new vocabulary. I encourage you to put on some music in Spanish, or if you're writing a dialogue, like I said earlier, then you can try to make it funny or make it interesting, and just have a list of new vocabulary to the side to keep you on track. And if you're one of those people that likes to make computerized flashcards, then what you can do is include funny and silly pictures. This not only is fun, but it helps your brain form meaningful associations so that you can better remember the vocabulary that you're learning. Hello everyone, it's Michael here recording on a different day. If you want to have a conversation for the first time ever with a patient in Spanish, then you can learn basic phrases like that, all the way to phrases that are necessary for conducting a physical exam and discussing lab results and so much more. So be sure to check out this playlist right here to learn medical Spanish fast. Thank you all so much for watching. Muchas gracias por ver este video y nos vemos en el próximo video. Chao, chao.